Morning guys, it's a lovely day in Deganwy. We are going to head over to Porth Wen, anchor there tonight. For some reason we seem to be collecting quite a bit of seaweed around our propeller, so I need to have a look at that. As you can see, there's quite a bit of seaweed that's managed to wrap itself around the propeller. Over the winter we replaced the propeller and put a new rope cutter on it and a new shaft anode, so I don't quite know where it's managing to wrap itself, but I think it's behind the rope cutter and the shaft anode, as there's a little gap there.
Hey guys, so today we're heading over to Porth Wen, and I'll just show you the chart. Hang on.
The weather is forecast as southwesterlies around 15 knots, so it will be interesting to see what we actually get when we get out there. It is meant to rain later on today and most of tomorrow, so hopefully that isn't too bad.
So John's jumped ship and he's going out with Eamon. Adios. No, in fact he's just really only going to go and get some more fuel. He's taking our other jerry can back over to get another 20 litres, seeing as we seem to be going through quite a lot of fuel. It seems like everybody's pretty busy getting fuel, getting out today for the bank holiday weekend.
Good morning. There's a boat in the fuel bus at present. If you let your lines go and hang about there, you should be up gone in a couple of minutes.
We've got a couple of other boats coming with us this weekend. So we've got Eamon on Jamelia, we've got Jay on Tarka, and we've got Nigel on Diego. Nigel also has a guy called George with him. George is doing a Beeline Britain challenge to raise money for charity, so we'll tell you a bit more about George later on. And Diego is taking George to the Isle of Man, so when we leave the Skerries, Diego will be heading straight over to the Isle of Man to take George. From there, George is hoping to hitch a lift up to Scotland. As you can see, it's a little bit choppy today. We've just rounded the Perch and are heading out through the channel. Diego left Conway about half an hour before us and he's gone straight over the sandbanks, and it looks like Eamon is deciding to go over the sandbanks in Jamelia. Tarka's a little bit further behind us and looks like he's aiming to go over the sandbanks. We'll continue through the channel and catch up with them further out. As we're heading out through the channel into the chop, we're taking plenty of spray over the bow. We hear on channel 16 that a yacht has fouled on a fishing net and are requesting assistance. The inshore Conway lifeboat has actually launched to go to these guys, so they'll be on the way up the river behind us as we speak. Now we're trying to work out which of the yachts in the distance it is, and I think it's the one that you can see with its sails up, so hopefully they haven't fouled too badly around the propeller or anything like that if they weren't using the engine, and hopefully they can get sorted and get back into Conway. The inshore lifeboat has called us quite quickly, obviously, and they are going to the assistance of this yacht that called in the Pan call. It looks like they are smack bang between C1 and C2 buoy, which is quite concerning that they've managed to foul a net in that area, as obviously these shouldn't really be in buoyed channels. So it'd be interesting to see when we get a bit closer what it actually looks like and how bad the situation is for those guys. Thankfully it's something that we haven't had to deal with yet, but with the amount of pot boys that we come across, which are very difficult to see, it's ultimately only a matter of time before I think we'll end up collecting one, which won't be a good day at sea. It looks like they've collected a fishing net, so obviously potentially it wasn't intended to be where it is, and maybe have been lost over from a fishing boat or moved from where it should have been. Obviously they've managed to get their anchor out, which is good, and there is a couple of boats that have been heading towards this that haven't actually realised what is going on, obviously not listening to the radio, so the people on the boat have actually been waving people off, and so it looks like the RNLI guys are trying to cut this net free for them. So keeping listening on the radio, it sounded like the yacht managed to get free of the net and was escorted back into Conway by the lifeboat. And true to fashion, the weather forecast wasn't very accurate for today. There was a lot more westerly in the wind, so we were quite close hauled under Genoa only. I'm just detaching the mainsail halyard as this was starting to pull out the main. We had no real need for the main as the Genoa was taking us along very nicely. So the predicted wind speeds of 15 knots were quite a bit out. We were getting consistently 20 knots with gusts into the mid-20s. Initially the autopilot was doing a very good job of keeping us on course, but as it started to gust up a bit and the swell increased that we'll beam onto, I had to hand steer for quite a large portion of the trip and ended up taking quite a few waves to the face, so wasn't looking particularly happy in a lot of the next video footage you can see. As the gust started to increase, we had to put a couple of rolls in the Genoa, but when we do this we lose all the shape essentially out of the Genoa and our angle to the wind becomes very, very poor, so we weren't really making a very good way along our intended course. So as you can see here, I'm constantly just looking at the sails, seeing if we can creep a bit more and hand steering it. Eventually we did have to put the engine on to sort of assist a little bit with our angle. When we had the full Genoa out, we were making a good 7 knots speed over ground because obviously we had the spring with us. And then obviously as we've reefed, we've lost quite a lot of speed, and all the other boats, Jamelia, Tarka and Diego, had obviously carried on powering off into the not so sunset. So we were now quite a bit behind everybody else as per normal. So I'd totally given up at this point. I was quite wet and cold after taking quite a lot of waves to the face. Couldn't really get any shape in the Genoa. We're just going more and more off course, quite a lot of leeway, so we just turned the engine on and tried to make up a bit of ground. By this point, Eamon on Jamelia had already gone into Porth Wen, and then, unbeknown to us at the time, had actually then left to go to a different anchorage. Nigel and Diego and Jay on Tarka had been keeping fairly close together, and they were about 3 nautical miles off the intended route, but had obviously kept sailing for that time. Nigel had already got into Porth Wen, so he was about an hour ahead of us, and Tarka is just in front of us making his way into Porth Wen.
What do you say?
Some quite brave kayakers out today. It was still blowing 20 knots consistently, and obviously it was spring tides as well, so fair play to them. I'm not sure I would want to be them at this particular moment.
Oh yeah. And there's an orange one over there. But that's right over there, so you're right.
Seems the only part of the weather forecast that was actually correct today was the fact that it was going to start raining. It actually took us quite a few attempts to get in the correct position to anchor. We had 20 knots right on the nose, so Danny was doing a really good job of keeping the boat steady while I dropped the anchor. But it did take us probably 3 attempts to get it down. Managed to get it set really well and had about 30 metres of chain out.
It's windy.
Typically, once we had managed to get the anchor set, the wind dropped to 12, 13 knots. It's a lovely anchorage, Porth Wen. Can be quite rolly, as we find out later during the night, but it's a really peaceful, tranquil place.
Don't like wind.
So this was our actual track that we sailed on the day, which was obviously quite a bit off our intended route, but we were meant to be on a beam reach, and obviously ended up quite close hauled, and you can sort of see the point just near Linus Point where we turn the engine on and basically motor straight into the wind. There was quite a lot of swell getting pushed into the anchorage overnight, so we didn't get a great night's sleep, and then woke up the next day to torrential rain for most of the day. We were joined by some divers who spent most of the morning exploring around the headland. So guys, that's it for this episode. Next one we'll be heading over to Skerries. It's only about 8 nautical miles to pick up the mooring buoy for the night there. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.